Welcome back to the Social Impact Level Up podcast. This is where we blur the lines between business, nonprofit, and impact. I'm your host, Wendy V, and I'm a social impact strategist here to help you build a successful and sustainable legacy of social change. In this week's episode, we're going to hear from a social entrepreneur who has been on a journey to change the world just like you. If you are interested in social entrepreneurship, this is the place for you. Let's jump right into this week's episode. Hey everyone, we are here with another episode of the Social Impact Level Up podcast. This morning, I am joined by Victor Morgan, who is one of my friends I met at FinCon. If you don't know what FinCon it is a financial content creators conference, and all these finance nerds come together to talk about amazing things that they're doing. Now, lo and behold, I come as a wellness person who talks about finance as part of your wellness. I did not expect to run into another finance wellness nerd at the conference. And that is how Victor and I connected, because I immediately saw the value in what he was doing and wanted to share more with the world about how he is going to revolutionize our ability to track our health goals. And not only that, really support us through our journey of living a healthy weight and healthy lifestyle throughout our adulthood, and give us the tools to be responsible for it ourselves, right? So all of these benefits in what he's doing, and he's just starting out. So this is a perfect episode for any entrepreneur, social entrepreneur who wants to change the world, wants to help other people, and is thinking about going from an idea into action. And how do you keep going and have the stamina to make that happen? So good morning, Victor. Welcome to the podcast. Do you want to do a quick introduction of yourself and tell us a little bit more about you?
Good morning, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate it. Yeah. So my name is Victor Morgan, as you've mentioned. I am a trained mechanical engineer. So this is the foray into food has been interesting. I've learned a lot, but I am not the expert here. The introduction to this was I was fresh off a divorce. I had some pounds to lose. I was trying to get back into the dating game. And, I was trying to use apps like MyFitnessPal and Lose It, and I'm an engineer, I'm a numbers guy, I'm motivated. I couldn't use those apps reliably. You have to track what you eat, when you eat it, and then I got frustrated estimating amounts, and it was incredibly frustrating. And it was like back to the finance example, it was like manually balancing my checkbook. Like, do you manually balance your checkbook? Like,
No.
yeah,
Apps do that.
yeah, there's an app that does that. It looks at your credit card statement and it automatically compiles and reconciles all this information. And I said, "What do I I'm failing at this. I'm very motivated and I'm failing. There's gotta be a better way." And that's the genesis of, Food Coach, the app that I developed.
Now, I know what you mean because I have failed multiple times at tracking my food. And I don't even know if I told you this. I spent $4,000 on a trainer one time virtually in the middle of the pandemic, who the fail point was daily tracking of your calories for
Mhm.
me. And I didn't complete that program and lost those $4,000 because I couldn't track my food. So you found a way that people like me and people like you who aren't able to do that level of tracking every day can still get the benefit of understanding what is going on with your nutrition. So tell us how this idea happened. Like how did you go from failure into a product that you can help other people with?
So, this was one of the ideas I just couldn't kill. I just kept coming back to this idea. I didn't know what I wanted to do about it yet, but I knew that there was a need and there was clearly a market because MyFitnessPal and Lose It have massive followings, but it wasn't a market for me. I wasn't able to keep up with it. Um, so what I tried to do first was if you got a business idea and you think you wanna try and make it work, see if you can do it in Excel first. I would just track the food that I bought in Excel with a UPC code and then go look up the nutritional information, and I made ugly looking pie chart in Excel. And I found out what I was eating, where the sugar was coming from, right? And where all the carbs are coming from. I was eating 70% sugar and carbs. No wonder why I was having a hard time losing weight, right? Like, my bread had added sugar. It was ridiculous. So, in seeing where I was eating, those where that sugar was coming from and where those calories were coming from, I was able to buy different foods. And honestly, if you're trying to get to be 8% body fat as a man, you need to track individual calories. If you're trying to just be healthy, just change what you eat, and when you change what you eat, the calories that you consume will come down naturally because protein is satiating, fat is satiating. If you eat carbs and especially sugar, you're always gonna wanna eat more. It's ridiculous. It's really that simple.
It becomes this vicious cycle where you're like, "Oh, no, I'm getting fatter, but I'm also hungrier. Now I'm gonna eat more carbs and sugar."
Well, so what carbs do actually is that it drops it over time. Your insulin goes up, your blood sugar goes up, and then it drops below the baseline value at about 4 hours later. So you feel hungry again because your blood sugar dropped. So you just keep on this yo-yo with insulin and blood sugar. And if you move to protein and fat or periodic fasting, a variety of other things, it really helps level it out. But the starting point for all that is knowing what you're eating,
Mhm.
knowing where the sugar and carbs are coming from, and having specific ideas about how to address that.
Yeah, and I think that all of this is stuff you've learned, right? Because you're a mechanical engineer, so it's not like you knew about body fat and all of these things inherently when you started this journey. So how did you translate the skills you had as an engineer into developing your own app?
A lot of time and failure, right? So, start with Excel. That's what I did, and then I went through and I tried to automate everything. And then there's a variety. I mean, if you get an idea and you're somewhat technical now, there's a variety of different ways you can go through and create apps with low or no cost, um, that are that are functional. So that's what I've done. And the app's available. It's available for download on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store.
Yeah, let's talk about it so people know exactly what we're talking about. Maybe they can download it while they're listening to this podcast episode. What is the name of it and how do people find it?
Yeah, so the website is thefoodcoach.app. The app is called Food Coach, one word. You log in. I don't need anything other than an email address for password recovery. I don't even ask for your name. You could take a picture of your grocery store receipt, and it does everything else for you. That's about it, right? Then it gives you recommendations of foods that you should be buying less of, or and if you say you wanna eat a low-carb diet, um, and you have high carbs in your diet, carbs and sugar, it'll tell
Mhm.
you these specific items are the items that have the most carbs and sugar, and you should be eating less of them. And, oh, by the way, you have no protein and no, fiber in your diet. Here are some foods that you should probably be adding.
That's might be a problem if you have no protein and no fiber in your diet.
It will very much be a problem in your diet, right?
Yeah, and so when people download it, the way that it works, because I've tested this before, it's really interesting. Depending on what grocery store you go to, you have the receipt, they're all kind of formatted differently. It goes into the app, and the app takes the foods off of the receipts that you have from whatever grocery store you've gone to. Is still how it works?
That's exactly how it works. You take a picture of the receipt, it does optical character recognition of that, then it looks up the UPC code from the character string, it finds the nutritional information, it averages over the past month, so it knows, just in case you bought chips one time and you don't normally buy chips, right? It averages over that month,
Yeah.
and, it gives you recommendations based on that monthly average, right?
Yeah, and I think you told me when I did it, there was, something that stuck with me that was people tend to buy the same foods almost all the time. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so if you're the first person at a grocery store buying a food, the food coach doesn't know the relationship between the character string on the receipt, the words, literally the words that this receipt says, and the UPC code, which is what we need to be able to look up the information. But most people tend to buy the same thing frequently at the same grocery store. So by the third or fourth shopping trip, 80% of the items on your receipt are the things you've already purchased, which dramatically reduces any sort of workload. At this point, I shop at Aldi a lot. Uh, I can take a picture of a grocery store receipt. It's got 30 items on it. I know what the app knows what 29 of those 30 items are, and there's one new item that I purchased because they have a new type of cheese in or something, right? Um, but and I just have to take a picture when it's a new item. I take a picture of the barcode that pops up on Food Coach. It says, "I don't know what this item is." You take a picture of the barcode, it adds it, and it adds it for everybody.
That's really cool because it's almost like crowdsourcing the information from people's grocery store receipts, and you do it once for you, but then if I buy my Havarti dill cheese at Aldi and you go buy your Havarti dill cheese, do you love that stuff? I love that
I
stuff.
do, and you're an Aldi shopper.
Oh, I am.
Yes.
I have to skip the chocolate aisle in Aldi. I will say that's my downfall. If I go
I
into that
don't.
store, they have the, like, really amazing dollar chocolates. But if I stick to the parameter or the perimeter of
Mhm.
the store, which is something I learned in my health journey, sort of the baddie stuff is more towards the middle.
The processed food with no fiber and lots of sugar, absolutely.
Yeah, so if I stick to that outer ring of Aldi, I'm gonna get my vegetables, my dairy, all the way over to my meats, and then if I can get to the checkout before going into other aisles, just for 1 or 2 things that I need, that's kind of my strategy. So I appreciate what you're talking about because I'm a big Aldi shopper. But I also know that I shop at Giant sometimes, I'll shop at
Right.
Harris Teeter, all these other places. So Food Coach has the ability, even if it's never I've never say somebody lives in a different part of the country, different market, they've never put a receipt into the system before or no one else has. You can add new grocery stores, right?
Absolutely. Yes, new grocery stores are added, and, new food items can be added as well.
That's awesome. So this is, to me, so profound because it takes away the daily. I only have to do something once when I go to the grocery store every 2 weeks, every week, whatever it is. That daily action I couldn't keep up with my fitness pal. This kind of remedies that in a way.
It does, and it does it for the whole family too. There's a lot
Mhm.
of, um there's a lot of relationships within families where if the parents are overweight and unhealthy, and I'll talk about health, not weight. They're
Yeah.
different things. If the parents are unhealthy, they tend to buy unhealthy food, which means their kids are unhealthy as well. Whoever's buying the food for the family is by and large responsible for the health of the rest of the family. You can exercise some of this stuff off, but it's really hard to outrun a Snickers bar, right? It's very hard. A six-pack is made in the kitchen, and that's true because, a Snickers bar is what, 300 calories, and you need to run for 3 miles to burn that
Yeah.
off. Nobody has that much time.
No, when I
And
was in college, I probably thought that that math worked out. And I would work out for 2 hours a day to try to make that math work out.
well, I mean, if you're Michael Phelps and you're swimming in the pool for 12 hours a day and you wanna eat 6,000 calories, go for it. But that's very few people with a full-time job and a kid, kids and a family. So,
But he's
but the
probably not eating 6,000 calories of Snickers bars, so he's probably mixing it up with a lot of protein.
one would hope. I don't know.
Yes,
Um, but when you're burning that much calories, it really doesn't matter. Uh,
right.
but
Calories
when
are calories.
but when you're a normal person in a normal family, right? You get a full-time job. This stuff really matters. And families tend to have similar health, not the identical, but similar healths. So the person who's buying the food is responsible for the health of the family. So when you take a picture of the grocery store receipt, it's your health, your entire family's health, right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
mean, my son likes ice cream. I don't eat the ice cream, but every once in a while, if it's in the house, I'm gonna eat it, right? And that's how most people, I think, work. And
Yeah,
it's
and did you
difficult.
notice a difference in your son's health behaviors as you changed your health behaviors?
Um, Actually, I noticed it mostly in my daughter. Um, but then she's older, so she would go out and get it herself. So I would stop buying. She's 20 now, but I would stop buying some foods, and then she'd always complain that I had no food in the house, and I'm like, "Well, I got salad, I got fresh spinach, I got avocados. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. I don't have Snickers bars to pick on Snickers bars, and I don't have soda anymore, but like, there's a lot of other stuff. I don't want that." But
She's like, "I want the good stuff, dad."
well, right.
Yeah,
Um, but it's
that's
it's it's been a journey. It's been a journey, and you mentioned it before, there is a significant overlap between people who are forward-looking about their health and people who are forward looking about their finances and their wealth journey, because wealth is irrelevant without health, and health is made a lot better if there's some wealth.
Oh, absolutely. The things you have access to, the things you can buy for yourself to live a healthy lifestyle, to be able to, I mean, I shop in the summers at the farmer's market. And so I kind of ditch the grocery store as much as possible and switch over to farmer's market purchasing. And in actuality, I spend a little bit less because I'm more focused on how I'm going to prepare the food once I buy certain vegetables and things like that. And money wise, it seems like it would cost more, but it doesn't. It's really interesting. And I've done the comparison for myself and said, okay, it's actually cost neutral for you to go straight to the farmer's market on a Saturday, get the things you need, and then buy what you can't buy at the farmer's market at the grocery store. It's the same. It's the exact same, but you're benefiting in a couple different ways. You're helping local businesses, you're supporting the farm to table movement and the farmers in your state. And then you're also supporting your health by getting organic mostly. So it's for me, that's been a really good strategy, but I can't necessarily upload those receipts into a food coach. So
Yeah, that's the issue. If there's a PLU code, a price lookup code, right, that also works for fresh fruits and vegetables, but for the
Mm.
most part, it needs to have a UPC code.
Yeah, yeah. So there's just a FYI, if you go to the farmer's market like me, there'll be some changes in your months on the coach in the food coach app. So let's talk more about you and your journey because we talked a lot about the app so people know what it does. We want people to join the app so we can get the user base up. We want people to be able to upload receipts so that we can get the numbers of products up and people can have access to that information as the app grows. So beyond all of that stuff, you as a founder, you're a solo entrepreneur, right?
I am.
Yeah, so you're early in your journey, this early in the app. How did you overcome some of those initial barriers that solopreneurs face trying to get everything done, being the one person to do all the jobs, having a lot of ideas? Tell us a little bit more about you as a founder and what your journey has been like.
So I've always been fairly entrepreneurial even when I was an engineer, at my company, my prior company. But what I've found is that I have too many ideas and I don't have too much time. So what I try to do is I will kill an idea as quickly as possible so that I don't have to think about that idea anymore, right? I don't have a lot of room in the back of my head for maybe one day I should do this, but either you're going to do something or you're not going to do it. And that's me. So what I try to do is I will take an idea and I will try to kill it as quickly as possible. And for me, what that means is do the hard thing first. Figure out what is the biggest problem, the most likely reason this thing will fail, and then do that. And then if you can't make that fail, do the next hard thing. And then only start doing something if A, you can't get out of your brain, and B, you can't kill it. So for Food Coach, it was, can I get nutrition data? Okay, I can get nutrition data. Can I do optical character recognition? Oh, I can do optical character recognition. Well, okay, fine. But can I really make an app? Yeah, I can make an app. Now, what I should have done was start the marketing as soon as I was doing everything else. Uh, My bias as an engineer is the technical stuff. I should have been doing a lot more sales and marketing way earlier on. But something else that helped, actually, so Wendy mentioned we met at FinCon. I I showed Wendy the app really early on. She's like, "Yeah, this looks great, but I don't like the name of your app. This is terrible." You didn't hold on.
I was a
You
little
didn't
more gracious than that.
you didn't say it was terrible. I needed to tell myself that Wendy said it was terrible because if I said, "Oh, maybe somebody doesn't like it," I wouldn't have done anything.
That's true. You took
I
action right
need
away.
I need to know that somebody and a lot of people didn't like the name of the app, and I changed it. So
Now,
that
early on, you had a name that made sense to you, but it may not have made sense to your users, right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. It was something else, and it made sense to me, and I thought it would make sense to the financial independence community or the financial conference there, and it did not. So I needed to change it as well. So Wendy has been, and I think will continue to be extremely helpful here. In addition, there is, local entrepreneurial groups I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, local entrepreneurial groups in, my area at least. Um, Being a founder can be a bit lonely sometimes. Wendy, you probably talk about this.
All the time. Yes.
Yes, I've heard your podcast, and it comes up frequently. Uh, and finding somebody that's out there that's kind of going through what you've gone through, that second guesses themselves, maybe give yourself a little bit of grace. I'm sometimes hard on myself. And I want things done yesterday, and I am a terrible boss for myself. Um, and it's
I think we all feel that sometimes as a solopreneur. Like, man, if I were my worker right now and I was the boss, I would be really mad at myself.
yeah, yep. But there's just finding ways to give yourself some grace and learn and acknowledge what you don't know, and then find people who might be able to help. Find mentors, find coaches, find somebody who has done it before, or at least if they haven't done exactly what you've done before, have done something closer than you have, because you don't have the time in the world to make every single mistake. Somebody else has made those mistakes. You learn from them, right? It's one thing to learn from your own mistakes, but it's way faster to learn from somebody else's. So
Yeah,
read, get a coaches, all that stuff.
and I love that you have taken the initiative to find the help, because going out and finding the mentors, talking to me, being open to suggestions, not everybody has the courage to approach their challenges with that openness, right? With that ability to seek help and to take the feedback gracefully. How did you decide, like, I'm going to get help with this problem, or I'm okay with getting help with this problem versus fighting it out on my own and trying to work through it?
Ooh, I think that goes back to it might be who I am as part of my personality, but I think it goes back to my early days as when I was working in engineering field, where there was 30 people you needed to convince about something, and you know you're right, and the data says you're right. If the data doesn't say you're right, you should probably put your pencil down, right? But if the data says you're right, you still gotta convince 30, 40 people in a big organization to be able to do what you wanna do, right? To what you think is right. So, at first, earlier in my career, I would go to the people who I thought I could get on board first, right? And they like me, they trust me, they were pretty easy to get on board. But getting those people on board didn't get the difficult people, the people difficult to work with, the naysayers, or the people who always say no. And I had, you know, 70% of the people I needed saying yes, but that last 30%, the 70% couldn't impact the 30%. So what I started to doing, and this is going back to doing the hard thing first, I go to the naysayers first. You find the hardest person who's gonna say no first, and you get them on board. They maybe they require some hand-holding, but you get them on board first, and everybody else comes on board.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that that's the way it will be with this app. I definitely can see the utility, and if you find the right group of people who go, "Ah, this is easier for me than for, the other ways I've tried to do the same thing before," I do think the app is gonna grow really quickly, and I definitely believe in this product, which is why I've worked so much with you to make sure that it's been successful, and I love the idea of having a vision, going back to the roots of your career before you decided to choose on an entrepreneurial path and looking for those lessons that you learned and how you process them in that experience and then moving them over into this experience. I've done a lot of that myself and had to dig into, what are the skills that I'm bringing to my own company? What are the values that I'm bringing to my own company? What are the things that I learned that could have been done better in the past that I can bring those lessons learned to my own company. So can
Absolutely.
you say a little bit more about, some of the things that you've tried and then it didn't quite, you call them failures. I'm going to say there are lessons that you learned. So what are some of those things besides the name that you've tried that just haven't quite hit the nail on the head for you? And how are you navigating that moving forward?
So I've had a lot of ideas other than food coach that I thought I would pursue, um, and I didn't because I was able to kill them quickly. Within food coach specifically, I've had lots of misstarts about well, let's go back a little bit. I my default is not sales and marketing. It needs to be. And that's my biggest learning for myself is that I need to be out talking to more people more frequently because hearing no, it's not fun, right? It's way more fun to sit at my office and just type something out and like fix the code.
So going back to that, you are thinking marketing is the thing that you need to focus in on.
Yeah, marketing and awareness. The app works. Technically, it's there. Although I like the technical aspects, I need to get out there. I need to collide this with users. I need to collide it with people. I need to collide it with industry experts or people who are influencers within the space. Right. So that's what I'm trying to get out there. I'm advocating that. But hearing no is tough. Right. I got some pretty thick skin. I can hear no, but like you hear it a lot. It's not fun.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And you as a person don't strike me as the kind you're so confident. You don't strike me as the kind of person that a no would jar you at all. But I see what you're saying. It's not the one no, it's like 10 no's.
Yeah, the one no, it's, whatever, right? But, it's less fun than not hearing a no, right? And I enjoy making the app better, and I enjoy interfacing with the users that we've got, but that's not what's gonna take me to the next step. What got me to here isn't gonna take me to where I wanna go. And that's also something I brought from my career as an engineer is great. In my career or within a specific technology or a knowledge base, right? What brought me to the one point is nice, but might not be sufficient to get you to the next stage.
Yeah, no, that's great advice for people because it's always in entrepreneurship trying to that's why it's called the social impact level up. You're always trying to level up your game. And when you stop is really essentially when your effort goes either on without you and it's sustainable, or you just stop working and you stop doing it. So the goal is to get to that sustainable either growth all the way there and then it's sustained without you, or you're able to put this idea gracefully to bed, right? As
Yeah.
you're saying, kill it, but whatever way you need to kind of move on to the next thing. And right now, you're so laser focused, like we're going to make this work, and we are not putting food coach to bed. We are going to do it. So I appreciate that, and I admire that. And I think you said some really interesting things about early focus on marketing, but not being a marketer. I went through that same journey as well, having to learn the marketing piece and lean into it and realize that you are the face of this thing. You're the founder. How has that transition been for you going from being worker bee in bigger organizations to having to put yourself out there and be the face of your own thing?
In a large organization, I found that I could be influential behind the scenes. And then once you get that boulder rolling downhill, you're done. As a solo entrepreneur, getting the ball to roll is much harder because you don't even know who you need to go talk to. So I found that to be a challenge because it's been difficult to if this was in the engineering space, it'd be a little bit easier. I know people know I'm a good engineer, that type of stuff, but this is in the health and nutrition space, and as I've said, I am not an expert. I just wanted a way to figure out where the hell my calories were coming from because I know there's a relationship between all the sugar that used to be eating and, like, not being able to, lose weight, and I didn't have a good solution for that, so I made one. But it's difficult to get into a new field, and the best way to do that is just talk to people and be open with your failings or what you don't know. I'm gonna even use the word ignorance, that's the proper word. You don't know what you don't know, that's ignorance. There are things that I just don't know, and worse yet, there are things that I don't know. At least if you know that you don't know them, this is a Donald Rumsfeld regardless of his politics, he had some good
Yeah.
quotes, right?
Yeah.
Uh, if there's something you don't know, you can solve that. But if you don't even know, that you don't know it, you're not aware of your lack of knowledge, you don't start looking for it either. And to be honest, that was some of what I had for food coach too, was I didn't know that I didn't know things about nutrition. And as I figured some of this stuff out, right, the weight was easier to keep off. I felt better about my life, and that's really the goal of this. Food coach isn't talking about losing weight. I want people to genuinely feel better because I wanna blow up the healthcare industry in this country. If you got an immediate disease, healthcare in this country is great. If you got a chronic disease, we're terrible. The advice is terrible. It's very, very, very bad, and 80% of the healthcare funding comes from lifestyle diseases, and I wanna siphon all that 80% of healthcare spend from lifestyle diseases away so that the healthcare industry just implodes under its own colossal weight, and that's and if I have to make people healthy to do that, then I'm happy to help make people healthy to do that.
Yeah, and I love it because it's such a preventative aspect of, the return on investment that you make in yourself will then be a return on investment in your healthcare expenses too, because you're really focusing on your nutrition and you're living at your healthy weight, your healthy, lifestyle, and then that turns into less long-term costs for healthcare. So that the preventative aspect is really important to what you're doing. But I think a lot of us aren't trained to think of prevention as a goal for ourselves or a method that we could use in order to achieve our weight loss goals, our health goals, whatever they are. So it's really cool that you're offering this thought process to people of consider this. If you invest some time and effort in putting this stuff into the app and following it and looking at your health journey consistently, you'll see those benefits long term in your healthcare, costs and in your possibility of developing chronic diseases or even some acute diseases as well. And I think people just aren't used to framing this that way for themselves.
Yeah, and it's even different than yes, it's saving costs, but it's also how to live a good life, right? If you're chronically sick, your quality of life is just really bad. You've got brain fog all the time, your joints ache. The quality of your life is gonna be terrible. I want people to have amazing I don't know if I can cuss, but amazing
Yes.
lives. Amazing life.
Yes.
Please
Do it.
succeed in business, succeed in your relationships, succeed in your health, right? But if you've got in the cornerstone of your life a bad diet full of crap that you shouldn't be eating, too much alcohol, too much sugar, you're not having any fiber, so you're always constipated and you can't poop, right? You're gonna feel terrible all the times. It impacts your job, it impacts your brain, and it impacts your relationships. It's all the I mean, this is the cornerstone of having just a good life. It's like money. Just because you have money doesn't mean your life is gonna be good. Just
Mhm.
because you have health doesn't mean your life is gonna be good. But you're controlling the things that you can control such that your outcomes can be better. Like, at this point, if I have a I eat some bad food, I have a bad diet day, right? It's not really a diet, it's just the choices that I make. If I
That one day your choices are different than normal.
Yeah, if I make bad choices, I feel it the next day. I can feel it in my joints. I can feel it my brain fog. It's you're nodding your head. It seems like you're the same way, right?
Oh, I can feel it when I eat too much salt. Absolutely.
Salt for you. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I bloat and I
Ah,
feel it.
yeah. But these all these things matter. And just because you're doing one thing right doesn't mean everything else in your life is going to go well. Just because you eat right doesn't mean you're not going to get cancer. But even though it doesn't prove that you won't get cancer, it helps you reduce the risk. It helps you reduce the risk of having a bad rel having, snapping at people in relationships because your blood sugars are going everywhere. It's the cornerstone of having a good life is having some good food in your belly, right? So you're not snapping at people and you've got a good relationship with others.
Yeah, I get hangry, so if I am not eating and it's not like for the purpose of fasting, I definitely notice the difference in my brain functionality and my ability to connect with people, and I become short and curt, and that's not me. That is not me normally. So it is noticeable, your behavior and how you relate to other people with your diet and your eating habits. Absolutely. I completely appreciate that. So I wanted to kind of shift a little bit and get you to think about what advice would you give someone who's it may be a little earlier on than you are, has an idea, might be afraid to pursue it, afraid to leave a 9 to 5, or afraid to pursue entrepreneurship full time. What advice would you give someone to start out if you could start all over again? Like, what would you tell yourself?
So there's a couple things I did right, and there's a whole bunch more that I did wrong. I'll start with the things I did right. I'll try and be generous to myself. I had an early mentor early on who said, Victor, I know you want to be an entrepreneur, but it's hard to be an entrepreneur if you aren't going to be willing to let your kids go hungry. And I said, huh, I don't like that. So I found, the financial independence group, people who talk about money, have a good income, but then save quite a bit of it, invest wisely in index funds, don't try and time the market, that type of stuff, and real estate as well for me. And what that does is it allows you the breathing room, the freedom to be able to pursue some of these things without taking a paycheck. Because if you have a week before you run out of money, and you need to go back to a full-time job, that's never gonna be enough time to pursue some of these entrepreneurial endeavors. You need more time.
Oh, amen to that.
Yeah. So you need to get your finances straight first because I'm in tech, right? No one is gonna give you money for an idea. People are gonna give you money for an idea with customers and ideally some revenue, but, you're not gonna get funding for a dream and a prayer. So that's something I've done right. Something that I should have done earlier, and I mentioned it with and you brought this up as well, is started on marketing as well. Marketing concurrent with product design, or even marketing before the product design. So you market an idea and you follow through with that idea if there's interest. And that's what I should have done more of, and I didn't do that. Um, Finding mentors and coaches is something that I've done a reasonable job. I give myself a C plus on that one. It's difficult, and then making sure that you're the type of person who, and this is a difficult combination, who is bullheaded and enough of an asshole to ignore a lot of feedback for people who say no all the time, but who's bullheaded enough to proceed anyway. That's one side, but also willing to take feedback when appropriate and knowing when it's appropriate to take the feedback. And that's really, really tough, right? What do you know about this person? What do you know about their goals? Are they out to help you or hurt you? And have they done it before? Right? If most of those things are true, right? Then you should probably take their feedback. Um, but that's a really hard thing to do. And then where I am right now is, at what point do you need to pivot? And where do you need to pivot to? So I've got 2 early stage startups I'm working on. One is not related to the health space at all. Um, but at what point do you pivot from one to the other? Um, and at what point do you just throw in the towel? And I'm not at throwing the towel stage yet. I need to go do a lot more marketing. That's again my weak point. Um, that's my advice. Know when to pivot, know when to persevere. Go get help because you don't have all the time or money in the world to make all the mistakes. And make sure you've got some runway so your kids don't go hungry when you're trying to pursue your entrepreneurial efforts because, they won't like that.
Yeah, my dog child reminds me every day that she needs to eat. We we have this conversation in my household daily, and I'm like, "Mommy is working. You need to eat. Mommy is working. Leave me alone." So otherwise, she'd probably be in here right now with us. So I love this. I love the conversation we're having. I think you're right about the marketing. I think there's a lot in there that people don't. You said people don't know what they don't know, and that's absolutely true. Finding people who are further down the journey, mentors, coaches, all that stuff helps. Books, people love to take courses. Like there's so many options to answer those early questions, and then knowing when to pivot or when to give up or when to keep going and fight through. There's always a certain point where the floodgate opens, and you just have to kind of get to that point. And I was telling you earlier before the podcast, that I'm at that point where the floodgate is opening. And I'm like, oh, do I have a catcher's mitt to catch all of the things that I need to catch right now? in order to really remain successful and to, keep going on my journey in the path. So, I'm kind of curious, what do you envision that floodgate looking like for you? Like, what is that thing you want to get to that says, yes, I need to keep going with this and I don't need to pivot or I don't need to give up the idea. What does that look like for food coach?
For Food Coach, that's a growing user base, a growing and active user base that I could then transition at some point to a fairly low cost, freemium app. Right now, it's completely free. At some point, there would be a freemium app, portion of this. So that's the goal, is to get, to grow the user base and, honestly, improve people's lives. Yes, people will lose weight, they'll get healthier, but I wanna improve people's lives, and that starts with the food they're choosing to put in their mouths. But that's what that looks like for Food Coach, is the growing user base. Eventually, I wanna try and use AI to be able to say, "Here's the people who started getting healthier based on all their health markers that they're uploading,
Mhm.
and here's the foods that they cut out, and here's the foods that they added," right? Because the best nutritional studies we've got right now for real people, real nutrition, are based on recall, which is, "Hey,
Mm.
the first Tuesday of last month, what did you have for breakfast, and how many grams of it did you eat?" Uh, ah,
I
who
would
knows
have
that?
no idea.
Right. I
No
don't,
clue.
right? But with Food Coach, because you've got all the data, it's all there. I can
Mhm.
tell you that you bought this food item on this date, and then correlate that with your improving health, your declining health. And that's another long-term thing. But for that, users.
And I love that because I was gonna ask you next, what is the impact that you wanna make with this app? But you just answered it. The impact is helping people and also really making research, that's based off of real life people available so that folks can make life changes that are informed by information, and we don't currently have access to that right now. So this is, I see the potential for this impact being really big and life changing not only on an individual level, but even on a macro kind of societal level. Is that really what you're looking for?
Yes, I would love to make an impact on a macro societal level. I want to blow up healthcare in this country, and 80% of the spend is lifestyle disease. And I would love that to go away. Because in the healthcare, I want to fund the nurses and the doctors and the janitors who clean up the building. If you're an administrator in your title, no.
Yeah, we're gonna try to reduce the number of people who are coming in the ER too, and all those things, right? Like all of the acute things that happen if you
Oh,
are,
yeah.
yeah, the costly things. And I love that, and I think that healthcare does need a huge reform on all levels, from insurance to the actual, experience in healthcare, and preventative healthcare, all of it.
Yeah, I've picked on healthcare in this country a lot. If I've got an acute illness, Western medicine and the United States is a wonderful place if you've got an acute illness, something that's immediately gonna kill you, and you've got money. No place in the world I'd rather be. But it does not do a very good job of helping you if you're on your way to getting lifestyle disease and then going to have an acute illness, or if you don't have money. Those are the and most of the people in the country, so 80%, 70%, 75% right now are overweight or obese of adults in this country over 18, and that sets you up for all kinds of complications. My girlfriend has, some issues with her foot, and we went to go to, an orthopedic, uh, for they work with, people's feet, and what I learned there was that the vast majority of people who have their legs amputated and need replacements or orthopedics are people who have diabetes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My
And
grandfather had that happen.
oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, before he died of diabetes related complications, he lost his foot.
I would have thought it would have been people in the military or things like that. No, no, it's lifestyle disease. And it just it's surprising to me because when, maybe you definitely had somebody in your life who had diabetes. I've had 3 or 4 come up to me and say, "Yeah, I've got pre-diabetes," and the doctor says, "Well, let's just look at this, and then when you get diabetes, we're going to give you some insulin. And that's it. Not change your diet, not get some exercise. It's just, we're going to watch and wait for this. And then when you've got a medical condition I can give you something for, I'll give you something. But until then, don't do anything different. It's just, it's frustrating to me. So that's my other goal is it really, really pisses me off. So the whole thing pisses me off. And then I couldn't track my nutrition the way I wanted to. And that pissed me off. So, there's a whole bunch of anger there, but I generally want to help people. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we all get to benefit from your frustration because you're helping everybody else out. Out of your place of frustration comes some beautiful things for everybody else. So we appreciate you, Victor, and your ability to turn that frustration into something productive, right? Because you could just sit in your mire and your anger and be like, no, I'm not going to do anything about this. But you're creating a solution and really trying to make an impact with this solution, not only on an individual level for people, but on a societal level, where we transform these things about healthcare that we're talking about. So one last thing I want to ask you about and just give you this space to put out a really solid call to action. What do you need from people to support you on this journey? If someone's listening to the podcast is really interested in what you're talking about, wants to know more about Food Coach, what is it that you want people to take action on right now?
So reach out to me. My contact information is on the website, www.thefoodcoach.app. My information is there. I'd love to help spread the word about this. Download the app, start using the app. If there's a feature that you don't like, yell at me. Like, I've got pretty thick skin. I won't maybe pay attention if you don't yell at me. There's a couple of ways to give feedback through the app or through the website. And then the big broader takeaway is your health and your family's health is your responsibility. It's not your doctor's responsibility. It's your responsibility. And if you're the person doing the grocery shopping for your family, it's more your responsibility than anybody else's because people will only eat the food in the house. And Food Coach is designed to tell you what foods to not buy more and what foods to buy more. So if you're the person buying the food for your family, you own that family's health.
Oh,
Take action.
absolutely. And you're the provider for your family, so you need to think about it not only as your health journey, but the health journey of your entire family. So I love that.
Absolutely.
So definitely, if you are interested in the app, we'll have the link into the show notes so you can take a look at the website. You can download the app. You can sign up. You can start uploading your food receipts to help all the rest of us out. And then you can start helping yourself out by looking at your food trends within the app itself and making some educated choices about what you do in the future. So thank you so much, Victor, for being here. It's been so wonderful to catch up with you. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Social Impact Level Up podcast. It's been awesome to interview today's guest, and I hope that you leave inspired to take action. If you're looking for any of the information we spoke about, it's probably down in the show notes. Make sure that you're checking them out and you're clicking on any of the links that seem exciting to you. If you are looking for a coach or a consultant to help you with your social impact or your sustainability, reach out to me via my website, hop on my email list, or jump into one of my programs. All of the links are below. So excited to have you as part of the collective. Make sure that you come back and join us for another episode next week.